George Kilpatrick, inspiration for the nation, celebrating people we feel good about. And it's time now for us to do a little bit more with Vicki Brackens, or do a little something extra with Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corp., member SIPC. It is the month of November now, but October, as you know, was Domestic Violence Awareness Month. If you didn't know it, it was. And one of the things that Vicki and I talked about doing is, well, Vicki and I talked about, we probably should talk about the issue of domestic violence and money, and especially the impact that it has on survivors, particularly women. And we know that obviously that domestic violence comes in all forms, but one of the challenges for women in particular is this. We know that statistically that the majority of domestic violence, that women are the primary victims. We know that it is also possible for men to be victims of domestic violence, but we know that the majority of domestic violence victims are women. So we're going to focus our conversation today on the impact financially on what an abusive relationship has on women, and in particular, what are some of the things that you can do? We know that one of the causes that a person might stay in an abusive relationship is because of financial insecurity. It might be because of not having safe and affordable housing. It might be because of limited access to money. So all of those are issues that Vicki Brackens and I want to tackle this morning. Good morning, Vicki.
Hi, good morning, George, and thank you for taking this time out, because I know you are a professional in this category.
I am.
So some of the guidance that you've given me and some of the questions that you've raised over the last couple of weeks as we're getting ready to have this conversation, I really appreciate from your perspective. You know, there are three things that I saw in the research that really, really jumped out at me concerning the issue of domestic violence in women. And here are the three things. Quite often, that individual is not employed outside the home. Mm-hmm. Quite often, they have no property at all in their own names. It's typically solely in the name of their spouse or their partner. And finally, there's usually or quite often a lack of access to cash or to banking privileges or to credit. And those three things compounded make it very difficult for an individual to actually stand up on their own as far as having the courage and the resources to move forward or away from an abusive relationship. In fact, I look at it this way. On top of that, because of the fact that we may also have children involved, the courage to leave and not return because of the change in lifestyle, because of the change in also many times social standing that happens when we walk away from the person who controls the finances, drives many women back to abusive relationships. So my first word of advice, I'll say it this way, will be to learn the basics of personal financial management. You don't have to be complicated with it. It's not the complicated, investment models and some of the things that we're going to talk about on other segments of the show, but just get control of basic personal finance skills, like how do I create a budget, understanding how money flows, don't be afraid to learn about money, and getting the basics of the financial management in place. Now, I have to say this, and I should have said it earlier. I am not a certified counselor in domestic violence. Okay? There are professionals there that I would tell everyone to go seek help for as far as their counseling areas. But from 30 years of observations and sitting across the table, here's some things that I've also observed with relationships. And you can see I've had a couple of instances as far as clients over the 30 years, and you can see things on the other side of the table. And here's some things that I have seen. First of all, our relationships with money also drive our level of confidence. If you believe that your value as a person is tied to how much cash there is on the table and don't understand the value of your humanness, then you're not going to stand confidently in your space. So I always talk to women in this way, particularly if they're homemakers. Do you understand the value of the skills that you bring to the table? Remember when we were talking about net worth some time ago? And I said there are two types of net worth. There's the classic definition of net worth, which is the stuff that we own minus the stuff that we owe, assets minus liabilities.
Right.
But there is a broader definition. And the reason I emphasize that broader definition was because there is human capital plus the financial assets equal the total net worth. We as a society discount the human capital. And my sister tells me this all the time. She says, "Look, Vicki, stay in your lane. You're not supposed to really try and change society. But what I can change is the way we view the society that we are in." And here's the difference. When you look at human capital, you're talking about the skills and the economic value of the skills that I possess. A homemaker never stops to think about what is it in a monetized value that I am bringing to the table. Mm-hmm. So I want to encourage everyone to go out to your website. There is a calculator. You know I love calculators.
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you do.
All right. There's a calculator there that we're going to look at, which talks about the human capital value of a mother's services and skills. The current value is about $67,000 a year. Why? Because they're running bus services, they're feeding everybody, washing clothes, taking care of all the management in the household. There is an actual scientific method for calculating that's used by the insurance industry to really determine the human capital value when you're talking about insuring an individual's life,
sure,
who possibly is not involved in what we call the classic job outside the home. Here's the third thing I want to emphasize, and that is if you feel or you are in the situation where you don't have money of your own, yet I am running a household and I really don't have the time to go out and get another job, take advantage of what the economy has become.
Right.
The economy is now what's called the gig economy.
Yeah. And where you can do things from home or there's a lot of, edit things. You can write, there's a lot of different ways you can do it legitimately. Not scammed.
Okay, all right. But,
I say legitimately because a lot of people get scammed with the stay at home and you don't have to leave your house. But I think the point that you're making is that even in a homemaker situation, you can be building equity and building something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even if let's say that you can do things like and get retrained in areas that make you a freelancer. Okay, is the term that we use these days. But basically building some cash assets of your own so that you have what I call options. Remember our pyramid that we went back to before?
Yes.
Okay, and the pyramid at the bottom was poverty, poor.
Yep.
You can still be, and I told you can be rich and poor at the same time, okay? Because if you don't have resources and you don't have options, that's our definition of poverty. But if you have resources and no options, you are still poor.
Right.
And for individuals who
Was that broke?
No.
That's not broke yet.
That's not broke yet. Okay.
Broke is above poor and poverty.
Okay. All right. But it's the issue of options. Okay. Mm-hmm. When you don't have options, then you stand in a space of fear. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And for individuals who are standing in a face of fear, then the likelihood of being taken advantage of increases.
Yes, it does.
All right. And so it's about giving everyone the avenues to options and how you deploy those options so that you now can stand in a space of strength moving forward. So if there are those three things that I can communicate to your audience around some options or some things that can be done to, if not prevent, at least mitigate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's review those three things.
Okay. So first of all, make sure that you understand the personal finances.
Yep.
That you know how to handle your own personal finances.
2.
Number 2, make sure that in everything that you do, that you understand your value.
In the relationship.
Okay, in the relationship. Okay, right. And number 3, create options. Create options through additional income sources.
And we should say that if you feel like you are a victim of financial abuse, and this would include being forced to sign for loans, having, your partner may require that you get some loans in your name only.
That's correct.
And then jack the credit up by not paying
go.
on the loan. And also tax issues as well. All of those issues. If you feel like you're in that kind of a situation and need help, obviously there's financial counselors available. But you can also call Vera House at 315-468-3260. In Syracuse, that's our local domestic violence and support agency. And we will also have for you the National Domestic Violence Hotline, Vicki, because those are important. That's important information for people. And where we're having this conversation in Syracuse, we want people to know that that's a 24-hour, 7 days a week number. But if you're looking for the National Domestic Violence Hotline number, we can give you that number in just a moment. And again, it is about getting the help that you need and getting the support that you need.
Well, George, and I'm glad you brought that final point up, which was concerning credit, because the statistics show very clearly that quite often a person who has been a battered spouse or a battered partner has debt that is not theirs, significant debt that is not theirs. And they came into the relationship probably with a stronger credit rating, and in our efforts to be loved and so forth, we make decisions that actually we take on the debts of others and are saddled with those debts for many years to come.
Let me give you that number. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 800-799-7233. If you're listening if you're streaming this right now, if you're listening outside of the Syracuse, New York area, 1-800-799-7233. In the Central New York, Syracuse area, 315-468-3260. And if we're not the provider for your county, we will certainly link you to the provider in the county where you live. But the National Domestic Violence Hotline can also do that for you as well.
Thank you very much, George, and I hope this has been helpful for those listeners. You
know what? We try to do it all here on Inspiration for the Nation. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corp. member, SIPC. More Money with Vicki